in these very perilous times. I want to thank you for joining us. We broadcast, for the new listeners out there just joining us, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, and oftentimes we have special shows like we did this past weekend. So I want to thank you for joining us for those shows as well. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. And we're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. You can tune in there if you so desire to our program, and I'll give you the specific URL. It is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com, all spelled out. And again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your belief and trust in us. Because right now, folks, who do you trust, and how do you? How do you know what's the news and what you should pay attention to, and what's just white noise? At any rate, Joe, it's good to be back with you. Let's we've got a heavy news day. So
yeah, I'm glad you're back from your tropical vacation.
Yeah, tropical vacation.
I say that jokingly because he went about an hour away from where we live, and it's anything but tropical.
And it was just actually a 2-day. It was just for those who sent saying, "What'd you do? Where'd you go?" It was actually it was my birthday, my wife's birthday, and our anniversary combined together, and we have not been away in anywhere together. I think in 8 years. And it was basically just an overnight deal where we just had a good time. And when I say good time, that means dinner together and getting her saying, "Hey, this is the first time we've had dinner in 2 years."
And that's the truth, because you guys never eat together,
no,
unless it's a holiday or a.
Exactly. In terms of like a normal day. So anyway, that's that aside. I want to thank you very much for all the kind wishes. We also have, but we've got so much news to get into. We've got, from Boston to the Ricin case to what's going on with this. Folks, in case you didn't catch this, I did this kind of on the run, and I won't get into the whys and hows of this.
And he says on the run, he means from the hotel bedroom to the hotel pool, I think.
I never saw a pool. And no. When I say on the run, I mean in the car and trying to get things. Did you ever have, folks? Did you ever have writer's block, or you
yesterday after the show, you and me were talking. And you told me how long it took. You said it took, X amount of hours to put together that article. And when we would travel, stay overnight, which was pretty much a every week thing. Every other day we would be somewhere working a case, an insurance investigation case. And from the hotel room, he would amaze me. He would write an article that would be a great article in like 20 minutes, and boom, start to finish, done. But he told me, it took him like 3-4 hours to put that together.
Well, actually, 3-4 hours to finalize it. What I didn't tell you was the backside of this. I started this on Friday, actually, and I got a lot of input from a good friend of mine, just a great friend of mine. Okay, but this is one article of about 5 that what was published on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. The name of it is "Blood Trail from Benghazi to Boston." Was done in sections, and you folks don't really need to know the background, other than the fact that it was very difficult because there was a lot to confirm on this. But what the bottom line on this is. And I'll just be very quick with this. If people have a tendency to put things like Benghazi in the back of their minds. Well, what we saw in Boston, for one thing, was an artifact, if you will, of Benghazi. There are so many angles to what's taking place globally. It's just not one. You see, it's just not, for example, it's just not Islamic terrorists that want to kill the Western society, Western people. It's just not that alone. Of course, that's a factor, but it's not the only factor. There's motive, there's causation behind this, but there are also lies that are wrapped up in this too. Because in this article, I have a link to, and this also appears on CanadaFreePress.com. If you haven't seen it or haven't read it, if you don't mind, just go ahead and reading it. And if you agree with it, then certainly spread it around via Facebook, like it, and even comment on it at CanadaFreePress.com. But here's the situation. Remember, Joe, remember Hillary Clinton, when asked about Benghazi, she said, what difference does it make? Was it because of a protest, or was it because guys out for a walk? Who decided to?
When she was testifying, she kind of snapped.
Very unstatesmanlike, very undiplomatic-like. Okay, well, what we saw, and there's, like I said, there's 4 or 5 articles I have ready to go, but I had to break this out of. I initially started out on Friday with something totally different, and this is what I came up with, because there's so much information here that we'll get into with Boston and with the and it all comes back, folks. It all comes back to Syria. It does, even though these are Chechens. But anyway,
I'm interested to hear about that, the Syrian angle more than.
Yeah,
I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Well,
and I have some questions because, and we can get into that whenever you want. But the new news from Boston, terror narrative falling apart, says Zero Hedge. An article from Zero Hedge from today says, we have no idea whether or not the Chechnyan brothers, Tamerlan and
don't even try to pronounce
Czar.
Names. I
just say Czar for the other guy, the young one. We're the Boston terrorists. Last night, I played an audio clip of Jay Carney saying that they will not charge the living brother as an enemy combatant. At the same time, they did not Mirandize him, and this is when last night you communicated with me through Skype and sent me a link to your article, and I didn't really read it while I was on air, but I did post it, and you sent me the important parts that were highlighted. Now, this is the situation, if for those who might not know. Initially, right after the bombing, they had a suspect, a person of interest. This was a Saudi national. He was young, I'd say early 20s. He was said to be the person of interest in the very first news. When 9/11 happened, they came out and said Osama bin Laden. Well, this was the first person they were blaming or looking to see if there was more information about this gentleman, if there was evidence of this gentleman being involved in this crime of the Boston bombings. Now,
I can kind of summarize it this way, if you don't mind, only because it gets kind of convoluted. And this is why, folks, how convoluted this is. This is why it took me so long, because I was trying to confirm different things, and then I would speak to a source, and the source would say, well, I have so much information that, once again, it cannot be digested in one article. But here's the deal. Boston, the marathon. A young man by the name of Abdul Rahman Ali Isa El Salmi El Harbi, a Saudi national, ran from the scene, was tackled. He reportedly had burns specifically to his hands. Now, the pictures, however, of El Harbi, and we're just going to refer to him as El Harbi, show him in a hospital bed and in a hospital room. Different pictures, different positions, same person. He is a Saudi national. Now, you might not know the name El Harbi. Why? Because it really wasn't widely reported. It was
Right.
reported right after the bombing, and
Well, still, at that, I mean, the name did not stick with me. I do not associate that name with any terror
okay.
suspect from the Boston bombing. So,
Well,
yeah, they said he was, that when they mentioned his name, they referred to him mostly as a Saudi national.
right, and at the very same time, I was getting information from one source about this. Well, actually, both Joe and I were independently and then collectively, and then there was an issue because of the length of the name, and it just gets crazy. I mean, imagine signing your name Abdul Rahman Ali Isa El Salmi
Yeah,
El
there's like
Harbi.
six
Okay,
names in there.
all right, and then we have, because of our position, we've got assets to or access to databases, for example, where you can verify certain information. Well, wouldn't you know that when I would access or attempted to access all of the databases that we have as investigators, that the information was blacked out on this guy. Not all of the information, just some of it. It was gone, erased, inaccessible. For example, if I wanted, or if Joe and I wanted to look up your social security number, your address, your phone number, your email address, or whatever particulars, prior criminal record, status as a terrorist, whatever it might be, we could have, and oftentimes have had 30, 40, 50 pages worth of information. Neighbors, friends, associates, relatives. Well, it was blocked out. The only thing that we could get were certain pieces of that puzzle related to Al Harbi. Okay, here's the deal: Al Harbi was identified as the man, the Saudi national, who ran from the Boston Marathon explosion and had burns on his hands, burns on his body.
Okay, now who is stating that he ran away from the scene?
This was from eyewitness accounts. Who
Okay.
and now also at the very very same time, or right around the same time, Glenn Beck comes out, and I think it was on Friday, said, folks, I've got, the White House has got to come clean on this. The media's got to come clean on Mr. Al Harbi, or I will on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. That was part of it. Okay.
And let me jump in here real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
And you said you didn't want to really get into this too much at all, really, for the show.
Well, it's fine. I think people need to know this. What's going on?
On I don't even remember what day the marathon bombing happened. Sometime last week, I sent you.
It was on April 15th. It was on Tax Day,
April
Patriots
15th.
Day.
Oh, yeah, okay. Tax Day. I sent you a link to a Bill O'Reilly show.
Right.
And Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly called out Alex Jones, saying he is saying the government committed a false flag with these Boston Marathon bombings without any evidence, and he's a kook, a crazy,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
You've got people supposedly on the same side eating their own, but okay. Yeah.
So now we have Glenn Beck coming out, and you and me watched an audio or video, 3-minute video. I'll post the link to the article in the chat room. It's, Glenn Beck says Obama is covering up the truth of Boston bombings. Almost immediately following the Boston bombings, radio and former Fox News host Glenn Beck, his news site, The Blaze, chimed in attempting to ridicule Alex Jones and InfoWars for labeling the events a false flag attack, running articles like, with absolutely no evidence, Alex Jones calls Boston Marathon explosions a false flag operation conducted by the government. However, Beck himself seemed to be the conspiracy theorist, saying he knows something those at the highest echelons of government don't want unearthed.
Okay, now there's a couple of elements here at play, and very, very important distinctions here, please, folks. Number one, for example, when someone, whether it be Glenn Beck or let's say Alex Jones says, okay, this is a false flag conducted by criminal elements within the government. Okay, that's fine. explain what that means. In other words, the criminal
Right.
elements within the government could be, for example, just that. It's not the entire government. It's not the,
Right.
uh, so.
And Bill O'Reilly made an issue about him asking questions and actually lied on air about a Family Guy episode of all things. Um,
But you know that Family Guy episode that
yes,
we're talking
I know
about.
the way the episode was put together to air on TV did not match the way it was put together, but that's still
Okay, but listen to me carefully. See,
different because it was the same episode.
right?
It was the storyline was the same as
Yep.
Jones was saying it was. He wasn't manipulating anything in a way or change. He didn't make up any clips or add extras onto the end as they seem to hint to.
No, but see, and here's the problem with the videotape evidence now, or videotape documentation or video. If you present, for example, if you looked at the Family Guy episode the way Alex Jones presented it, which I don't have a problem with, you make a notation that this might be out of or this is out of sequence, is the way it was aired or whatever. So I can understand where people would look at that and say, "Wait a minute, that's not, it didn't happen in the sequence of events was shifted, for example."
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
watch the episode and I've never seen it, so I
All
don't
right.
know.
Well, but see here, but here's the problem. People are asking the wrong questions. People are pointing in the wrong direction. People are looking in the wrong direction. Let's go back to Al Harvey, the Saudi connections here, and the two guys, and remember right after or here this past week, or even I don't know, it could have been here within the last 48 hours or 72 hours. Drudge reported, everyone's reporting that now the authorities are looking for a 12-man sleeper cell. Didn't that just come, when did that come out?
That was on Friday morning.
You're muted, I think.
That was on Friday morning or over the weekend.
Okay,
That came
all right.
out. I'd want to say, and you and Steve talked about this off air during a telephone call. One of the days we were in the
All right.
office, I remember you guys having a conversation, and he said something along the lines of this: if this really was Chechnyan Muslims who committed this act, there is probably
Oh yes,
you know
you're talking
5 to
about
10
the
more
worst of the
guys with
worst.
him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you're
other
talking.
cells.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, if you, when you talk about Chechen, the terrorist, they're the ones that did the Beslan school massacre, for example.
See,
But
I'm unfamiliar with that.
oh my goodness, one of the worst, most horrific terrorist attacks in Russian history, if you will. Okay, but here's let me go back to the so the Boston Marathon, the explosion. I will say this flat out: we are not getting the whole story on this, on exactly what happened. Because number one, you've got two guys, two young people, who funded them, who funded their lifestyle. Now, Revere, Massachusetts, where, well, or I'm sorry, where they lived. You've got to ask yourself, or you got to follow the money, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. The bombs themselves, look, not a lot of money to make, not a lot of knowledge necessary to put them together. The information is on the internet, has been on the internet for a long time. But the fact of the matter is, you've got to follow the money because someone is supporting these two guys. Now, this is a non sequitur going to Al Harbi. Al Harbi's the Saudi guy that was initially named as a person of interest or suspect. He was being guarded. Remember that, guarded at a hospital, supposedly guarded at a hospital.
That sounds familiar to another Saudi who is wanted for a crime, allegedly, in the U.S.
Okay. Well, here's what happened with Al Harbi, and this connects the information that Glenn Beck has. This connects the information that Jones has, and no one wants to talk about this. Yet again, It's all in the article at HomelandSecurityUS.com and CanadaFreePress.com. Well, during the normal course of the investigation, while Al Harvey was in the hospital, don't the investigators find out, hey, there's a deportation order for him under Section 212 3B in the Immigration and Nationality Act regarding security and related grounds for terrorist activities.
No, yeah, he was on the terror watch list. And as I don't look at the terror watch list, like when most people hear it, they think, oh, the guy's a terrorist, because we know how it's used.
Right, correct.
At least domestically.
But when you've got, okay, domestically, and here's the distinction. Here's a Saudi national living in the United States. Now he is subject to this particular section, 212 3B, Immigration and Nationality Act, regarding security and related grounds terrorist activities. But see, that's completely unrelated to the Boston bombing. So here's a guy that was there at the event with injuries consistent, perhaps consistent with being part of the process, the explosive thing. He's in the hospital, and the investigators find out, oh my gosh, he's on this list. Okay, now that quickly, his name and the fact that he was on this list quickly changed, and how it changed was
friends in high places.
Well, yes, but don't forget, there were photographs, and you can still find them on the internet. I didn't publish the photographs. I did publish his address, however, 364 Ocean Avenue, Revere, Massachusetts. 5th floor apartment, by the way. I do know the apartment, but 5th floor. 364 Ocean Avenue, Revere, Massachusetts, suburb of Boston.
He's not there now.
Well, right. But the fact is this. There are photographs out there of the FBI and DHS, or the FBI and police carrying out bags upon bags of evidence, okay?
Yeah, they admitted as much.
All right, fine. So now he is the focus, of he's on the radar for the marathon bombing. Well, at this point, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, and the Saudi Foreign Minister Saad Al Faisal had a meeting Tuesday morning, the day after the marathon bombing. And wouldn't you know it, 10 minutes before the meeting, they're always open to the press, the press said, hey, we're going to stop, they said, we're not going to invite the press in on this meeting. It was after that meeting. That his status was changed.
Yep.
Now, this is what Glenn Beck is referring to. When he's talking about an event, you might have heard, if you listen to Glenn Beck, he'll say event. He's talking about a file. If someone creates an event, the FBI, that is, it's a file on you for a particular person or particular action or event, hence the name. Well, wouldn't you know it, during this time as well, Michelle Obama goes to visit some of the people in Boston at the Boston hospitals. One of the people that she visits was Al Harvey. Now, did she meet alone with them? And this is why it took me a number of days to really get, to find out what was going on. Well, nobody seems to want to talk about it.
And this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you. The FBI carrying bags of evidence out of his house.
Yes.
How do we know they weren't just packing for him?
Well, they probably were at this point. In the end, I mean, at that point, no, because you look at the photographs. I mean, that they were treating that as a crime scene. But no, yeah, they might have packed them up and sent them off with compliments. Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't get to look at the evidence for ourselves of the people who planted the bombs or the book bags. We don't get to look and make a distinction for ourselves of this guy's guilt or innocence, or of the other two's guilt or innocence. And I say that because there is, in this Zero Hedge article, new information where there was initially claimed to be a 7-Eleven robbery conducted by these two Chechens, and the director of corporate communications at 7-Eleven says the surveillance video of the crime was not taken at the 7-Eleven, and that the suspect that did rob the 7-Eleven did not look anything like the Tamerlan or his brother. The suspect in the photos for that particular 7-Eleven robbery looks nothing like the suspects, Chabris says. Chabris is the director of corporate communications at 7-Eleven. Now, there's a MIT is where these brothers went to school, and
folks, that's not a cheap date, even with the scholarships. Okay, so once again, you've got to ask, who is funding these two? Who really?
Well, there's a history of the FBI. There's a history of the FBI involvement with these two people. An openly admitted history. In 2011, they were interviewed. One of them was interviewed by the FBI.
This is correct. This is absolutely correct. The FBI
mother says that they had a open 5-year relationship, talking with her son, the younger one.
Right. No,
she said he knew where he was at all times. They knew what he was doing.
The FBI did.
This is what the mother says. Yes.
Okay. The FBI, or one thing
says, the mother. Yeah, the mother says the FBI talked to the brother, younger brother, or both brothers on a regular basis. Basically.
All right. One thing I can confirm, independent of any other news source, it doesn't matter. The FBI did know, and have conversations with, did know, and had regular visits with the elder of the two, the deceased marathon bomber. Now, folks, we're putting this together, okay? I mean, but where does this El Harbi fit in? Some say, well, he's a relative of Osama bin Laden. Is that true? Do you realize how many? Do you realize that just about every individual in Saudi Arabia is probably a relative of bin Laden? I got to tell you, I mean,
they are the head family over there.
Exactly.
They have helped. I mean, their relationship with people, their family's relationship with people in our government.
Exactly. Now,
presidents, I mean, you got pictures of George Bush Sr. holding hands with him or kissing his hand, and the oil deals they have together. Even Kissinger is involved. Remember the 9/11 Commission, when Bush appointed him to the 9/11 Commission, the family said, well, we don't want you to head this because unless you want to disclose the business ties.
Oh, yeah, and they wouldn't do that.
To the bin Laden family. And he said, I won't do the 9/11 Commission.
Okay. But folks, just to put this in perspective, just as Benghazi is the window to the CIA's weapons running operation to Syria, Boston Marathon attacks, and you're correct when you say the official story is falling apart, because there's lies every time you turn around. There's lies, and part of it is propelled by the media. But look, we've done a lot, and see, here's the other issue: people want to be first out with the information. We feel it's more important to be accurate than to be correct and accurate than to be first. Yeah. Unless, of course, there's there's some overriding need to be first because of some threat. Well, that's not the case here.
Well, let me share this with you, and I don't know, you probably didn't have the same experience I did with this Boston situation, and I don't know if the listeners out there did or not, but like Sandy Hook, like 9/11, and all these other incidents that have raised questions in the past, this one did also. But I did not have the obsessive compulsive need to go over every detail and story I could find. I actually tried to stay away as much as possible from this story.
Well, we look, we have I don't know, a
Not
Manhattan-sized phone book of pictures and of documents related to this,
right.
and we've gone over it, but we haven't really published. For example, the photographs.
It just gets to a point where it's
Well, here's the
if people
problem.
don't see through it by now. I mean, when you see the footage of SWAT teams taking people out of their houses,
Well, let's hold off on that for a second because people are not thinking big enough. See, this is the problem where it lies. People are not thinking big enough. People, with the exception of our audience, I believe that most people aren't thinking big enough, nor are they thinking on an international level. That we're dealing with internationalists. When you look at the various photographs that are analyzed and I know that Alex Jones had done just a tremendous job with respect to the analysis of the photographs taken, or the still images, to be more precise, taken of videotape footage of the finish line. You had, I mean, you could pick out Saudis, you can pick out Chechens by their facial structure. You can pick out Navy SEALs, if you will, or subcontractors of the government there. I mean, they were all there. Really, they were all there at the finish line. And then you had, and I don't know how many people heard this, you had, I think it was Rob Dew's brother-in-law or relative who was working for the DIA running this marathon. Can you imagine running, I don't know, what is it, 26 miles, almost 26 miles, getting within a mile or so of the finishing point, and he reaches down. He reaches down to get a cup of water or something, and his supervisor pulled him out and said, "Hey, you look dehydrated. You're not going to finish the race, okay?" And the guy, under protest, "No, I can finish. I can finish." "No, you're not going to finish the race." So that shows a level of knowledge of some type of an event that's going to take place at the finish line. But what we are seeing here, and why we're going back to this, is now now that other things have been confirmed, or now that the government has taken an official position on this. Now we can look back and say and see where this is headed. But this has the fingerprints.
have they charged the younger brother?
You know what? I'm not exactly certain what his status is. All I do know, I do know that. Yeah, but I'll say this.
I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna look that up.
This has an operational signature of a very large. This has the same operational signature as previous events, such as Oklahoma City and other.
Yeah,
and other events. Okay, now
what gave that away? Was it the all the personnel that didn't belong at the scene of the crime?
Well, yeah, half the crowd were operational assets, for crying out loud, at the finish line. Okay, for various government agencies or for foreign nationals. It just didn't make sense.
Private contractors, private hired mercenary contractors that were there. Blackwater.
Right.
Why? Why do you need the National Guard? Okay. Why do you need Blackwater at a marathon? Unless...
Well, once again, people are not thinking big enough. This is the thumbprint of an internationalist type of an operation. When I say that, I'm talking about international bankers. I'm talking about the people who are pushing for a single global government. And you might think, where did that come from and why? And what are you talking about? Well, you're looking at the once again, the operational signature for an operation where there will not be any single point failure. Folks, remember me talking about that? There's a plan, and then there's a backup plan, and then there's a backup plan to that backup plan. So there's no single point failure.
In their minds, they have prepared for all possible scenarios and situations, and they have a strategy or agenda for whichever way the people go, whichever way the world goes. They have it mapped out, and they will.
Right.
They have a plan of action to handle it.
It would be like saying, okay, so we'll have a team of two people there with some ordnance, and then we'll have, let's see, there's another team there, perhaps believing they're engaged in a drill with perhaps some ordnance. Maybe they're trying to test out the dogs. And then you see all these pictures, and somebody comes out and says, well, we're right, we're correct by saying that, yeah, that there were two entities from, there were two subcontractors there from the government. Oh, no, 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 there were two Saudi nationals there. Oh, no, no, there were two Chechens there. Oh, no, there were two DHS members there. Well, guess what, folks? You're all right. You see, and people are fighting over the minutia of this, when in fact the bigger picture, take a few steps back and take a look at the bigger picture. What does it reveal? See, in the thumbprint, it's just not one player. It's just not one player. You know, and then off to the next major show. No, it's a number of players. Why? Because the goal here is something bigger than we've considered. Not when I say we, I mean people are considering. Because look at the aftermath. Look at what happened afterwards. And that's what I was trying to say, although not so eloquently, that last week. When you look at the aftermath, you have to kind of wait and see, take a wait and see approach of the government to see where they're headed. Well, let's go back to Al Harvey, for example. Was he there? By all indications, absolutely he was there. Was he involved? I don't know. But we do know this. He was, instead of being deported, he was the subject of a high-level meeting between Secretary of State John Kerry and Saudi Foreign Minister Saad al-Faisal. And the press wasn't invited. And then all of a sudden, that deportation order was rescinded, and he was almost treated as a VIP. Okay, now, what Glenn Beck was talking about was this. Congressman Jeff Coburn, or the congressman that, I'm sorry, let me just refer back to my notes here to be absolutely accurate. Congressman Jeff Duncan was questioning Janet Napolitano. I don't know if you saw that. There's a link to that questioning in the article. Well, he was questioning about the involvement of Al Harvey in this case. And Janet Napolitano, in the very same manner as Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, was indignant, and she decided that she would not even dignify Congressman Jeff Duncan's question with an answer. Never answered the question. The question was basically, you know, what did she know, and when did she know it? With respect to Al Harvey, was there a deportation order? Was there a deportation order that was rescinded? What she didn't know was Congressman Jeff Duncan had a copy of the initial order, the initial deportation order, the initial 212.3b order, and she wouldn't dignify. She couldn't answer the question. I mean, she just could not answer the question. The congressman was supplied with the initial order that showed that there was a deportation order against Al Harvey. That's what Glenn Beck was talking about.
Janet Napolitano dragged her feet, as the news article stated. One of them stated,
Dragged her feet?
Dragged her feet.
No, she outright lied. Well, okay, lied by omission, not by commission, I suppose, because she did not actually answer the question. But here's the whole issue. Okay, when you, and this is so maddening because we'll visit Alex Jones' site, and there will be dialogue with with Alex Jones and InfoWars. He's correct, and Glenn Beck, he's correct in certain aspects. They're all correct. They're not. They shouldn't be fighting with one another because they're all correct. But look at what happened. Now the blowback. But keep Al Harvey in the back of your mind, because Al Harvey is not the real issue here. He's an issue, but he's not the real issue. So just keep him in the back of your mind.
It's like the president saying the president is the beginning and end of all decision making in the U.S. for the policy, and no, he's just a fill-in. He's just a face.
Right, right, exactly.
He's a patsy.
The puppet.
Yeah,
he's the puppet. And who's pulling the strings? Well, okay, so just keep Al Harvey in mind, because he is essentially a bit player in this.
Jim Henson. He's pulling the strings.
Yeah. If I could do a Sesame Street voice, I would. So, all of this, what happened afterwards? Well, you saw a city in lockdown. You saw Boston in lockdown. You saw people going from hostile, or not people, but military assets and paramilitary assets, more accurately, somewhere between 9,000 and 20,000, it was estimated, going through the streets of Watertown and other areas of Boston that were, I mean, if you want to know what martial law looks like, you just saw it, essentially. People were being escorted back into their homes by paramilitary police, being told, no, you can't come out, you have to stay home. So what is that? Well, that's, by definition, that's martial law. All for, you're looking for one 19-year-old or one 20-year-old suspect. I understand how serious this is. I'm not trying to minimize what happened. But, folks, there were other assets there as well. What's troublesome, and you're not being told this, is there were other assets there as well. They were looking for other things too. You can count on it. Now, what other things? Well, how about wouldn't it be interesting if you see nuclear emergency search teams on the streets of Boston? Wouldn't that make you question what's really going on? Is it from an overabundance of caution? Now, you also had raids, and you didn't hear about this either. You also had raids or maybe you did hear about this. It was not widely reported, but associates, friends, and family members of the two Chechens that were arrested, raids in other cities that did take place. But then that's really not the issue. All of this is distractions. All of that is really part of the distraction. It comes down to a number of things, but if you look at and I'll just wrap it up by saying this: if you look at what happened after, or on that Friday when they had him cornered, and you look at that whole process, and then come to find out that there could be another dozen or so, maybe half a dozen, of Chechens, terrorists, on the loose. Well, we're going to see this play out again and again. And think of Beslan as well. Folks, we are being set up. I mean, did this happen? Yes. I mean, did the Boston Marathon happen at the hand of these Islamic terrorists? Well, by all indications, it did. I mean, if you look at the two suspects, I think a case can be made against both. But the other side of this, did they have help? And was there a level of involvement by DHS? And if there was a level of involvement by DHS, what was that level of involvement? And what were all those people there doing at the finish line that included the Saudis and the Chechens and like I said, even some elements of DHS and
the people who weren't running the race? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So Now, I also talk about motive and causation for what happened, and I believe there was. I happened to see during my downtime this. I said laugh downtime during the time I spent away over the last 24 hours, a connection between or some allegation that this was in response to our wars. Well, is that true? I mean, did these two young men just decide one day, or decide to that event was going to be the
Right.
location?
Well, let's jump away from that,
Okay.
and let's look at remember the Ricin letters that were sent.
Yes, yes.
There's new
Perfect.
information.
This is a perfect segue into that, because there are a lot of elements, common elements between. Now, I'm not talking there any direct relationship between Boston and the Ricin case, but there are a lot of common elements here from a law enforcement perspective. What's going on with the Ricin case? I thought we had that resolved. I thought that there was a man that was arrested for the Ricin case. Was
Yeah,
there
there
not?
was. Yes, there was. But
Well, what happened?
not anymore.
Okay.
A federal judge this afternoon formally dismissed criminal charges against Curtis. Magistrate Alan Alexander signed an order of dismissal after prosecutors petitioned to drop their case, since the ongoing investigation has revealed new information into the Ricin letters that were sent to politicians and the president. April
Right.
23rd, with prosecutors apparently poised to drop charges against the Mississippi man accused of sending Ricin-tainted letters to President Obama and two other public officials. FBI agents are searching the home of a former Republican candidate in connection with the dangerous mailings. Paul Kevin Curtis, 45, was arrested last week for allegedly sending the threatening letters to Obama.
Right.
U.S. Senator Roger Wicker and Mississippi County Judge. But Curtis has been released from custody amid signs that the case against him has collapsed.
It was during the court hearing yesterday that lawyers for Curtis contended that he had been framed, and pointed investigators towards another guy who has an odd relationship with Curtis, an antagonistic relationship for Curtis, to frame the guy. James Everett Dutchke, I guess is his name. But
we covered this when this story first broke about the letters, and I think there was an article we read where the only connection that was seemingly possible was his initials and what was the way the letters were signed.
Right.
Well, but that still doesn't make any kind of a case against him.
No, but it's funny because just much like the anthrax attacks, and there's a whole story behind those anthrax attacks of 2001, but and that ruined a lot of people's lives. I mean, you've got a situation here where when they went to Kevin Curtis, or Paul Kevin Curtis, Kevin Curtis is because of the KC initials in the note, but nonetheless, when they did the search of his house and such, they found no castor beans, no evidence whatsoever of any type of method. I mean, not even the same envelopes, paper, nothing. There's no evidence at all. But they arrested this guy. End of story. And all of a sudden, just as quickly as he was arrested, they dropped the charges. They let him go. So, what's the deal here? You look at this and you just have to wonder.
Right. Well, look at how they're handling the suspects with the Boston explosion.
Right.
The presumption of guilt instead of innocence until proven guilty. The media states it as the government wants them to, so the people have a preconceived notion in their head that these men are guilty before appearing in court. And
I don't want to make, but wait, I don't want to make your head explode, because now the new suspect in the Ricin case, this Dutchke, whatever, he's not only was an unsuccessful Republican candidate for the state representative position in the Tupelo area. He is now being paraded out as, get this, a radio broadcaster, a member of the National Rifle Association, and above all, a conservative. Okay, a staunch conservative. So now there's a case being made, and maybe there is evidence there. But this guy also was a subject. This Dutchke was arrested in January on child molestation charge in connection with a supposed assault on a 7-year-old girl at a taekwondo studio he operates.
7 years old.
Yeah. And in March, he was named in a 3-count felony indictment accusing him of fondling a victim under the age of 16. And he's out on bond. He had previously been convicted of indecent exposure, but now what is everyone just insane? But anyway, he's now being framed, or not framed, I don't want to use that word. He's now being described in the media as this conservative icon in the Tupelo area, where he's not only this conservative icon, but he's a very bitter, very intelligent, but very bitter man, and a very perverted man. But here's the thing: he's got conservative principles. Now I don't know too many conservatives who would go molest children and have a past like that and be a true conservative, or be a true conservative, I guess is the best way. And an NRA member. But the big thing is, he's an NRA member. Conservative Federalist, a member of the Conservative Federalist Society, honorary member or honorary chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee for Mississippi. What's going on here? What's going on here with this? In fact, you can even find pictures of this guy, this new suspect, with him standing next to Mike Huckabee, I believe, among others. So what's taking place here? What's the larger picture? Why did they? First of all, you have to ask yourself the question: why grab, like almost immediately, this Paul Kevin Curtis and charge him, and then drop the charges without any type of public explanation, and then pick this guy up, this James Everett Dutchke from Tupelo? Do we know? Joe, I'm asking you, man, do we know? We really don't. So we have to let this play out as well. But the fact of the matter is, can we at this point believe anything that we're hearing on the media? Can we in fact believe? Is this a case of just mere incompetence on the part of authorities? Or is this something more? Because just imagine being framed for ricin. It wasn't a very good frame job if they didn't come out with any evidence, and the case was dismissed that quickly and that unceremoniously. So there's just something that doesn't feel right at all with this ricin case. There's obviously, we're not getting the whole truth on that, just as we didn't get the truth on the anthrax deal. And yet, now there was and you reported this, Joe, there was another ricin, a case of ricin. That was another case they found today, was there not, of ricin at a military installation. So
that's something you told me about.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the story itself of any new.
Yeah, in fact, outside of suburban D.C., there was a case where there was and I have to wait, and I would suggest everyone else wait too, for the verification as to what this is. But I guess we spent the first hour going through the Boston issue. There's more to it than this. You've got the thumbprint, the operational thumbprint of the International is basically behind this, the operational signature for where there's not going to be any single point failure. You've got the presence indeed of all of these people in these groups at the finish line. You've got the other thing too, we did not mention the drill going on. Yes, there was a drill going on. Yes, people announced that there was a drill taking place. Yet the officials are either not saying anything about it or outright denying it. Have we seen this before? Absolutely, we've seen this before. But what are the results? What in the end? What are the results? Well, you've got residents ordered out of the homes, their own homes, at gunpoint by SWAT teams.
In my opinion, aside from who carried out the bombings, this is the second most important story.
Well, this might be the most important story.
This is what we've been talking about. I'll post the article in chat again right now. You can find it on the Mail Online, the Daily Mail. The controversial moment: SWAT teams ordered innocent neighbors out of their houses at gunpoint during door-to-door searches for the Boston bomber. A startling homemade video now shows the terrifying moments where Watertown residents were forced out of their homes at gunpoint as SWAT teams performed door-to-door searches, I'm sure without warrants, as they hunted for the second marathon bomber, the article states. I would throw in there alleged suspect, second suspect. They're already saying he is the bomber.
Well, yeah, and my wife together, obviously, this morning over breakfast, we were having a spirited discussion. She says, "Please don't talk about this stuff." And well, I have to, but two things. One, even without respect to the Miranda situation and the treating him as an enemy combatant and such, we're losing our rights as Americans. That's the story. Well, who's behind it? It's not any one group of individuals. It's not any two people. Or any two groups. Or it's all of the above. I mean, there's criminal elements in all of the above. I'm not talking about your neighbor who works for the police department, who's a nice guy who comes home. No. I'm talking about the people in higher levels. Perhaps one of the most striking photographs I ever saw, and you've really got to see this, folks. It was published by InfoWars. No, we're not doing an infomercial for InfoWars, but April 17th was the day it was published. And I don't know if you can find it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you can. I think it was called Papers, Please. There was a photograph from Nazi Germany in 1938 and a photograph from Boston in 2013. It gave me the chills to look at this because it's exactly what martial law looks like. And this is exactly where we're headed. And
what would you do? What would I do? What would listeners? This is a question to all of us. What would we do in a situation where the city we lived in had some kind of? Now, this wasn't anything near a 9/11 terror attack, but this wasn't a small matter either. As hundreds were injured, many lost limbs. I think 8 or 3 were killed, or 3 were killed. Hundreds were injured.
3 perished at the time of the bombing, but
one was an 8-year-old girl, I think. So it was not. I mean, it was a very horrific scene, I would imagine. It
was an 8-year-old boy, by the way.
I've never witnessed a bombing or been around the aftermath of one.
We'll see. But regardless, if you like you mentioned, you go to 9/11. Look what happened. The city was shut down, but my goodness, that was a horrific, a very large area, and of course a huge event.
This is more reminiscent of Katrina, what they did in Katrina, than what they did. there was nothing on 9/11 the police did. And if you look at the photos, how these don't look like SWAT team members. These look like special forces units or military operatives, as they're wearing all camouflage, green camouflage.
A lot of the BDUs and such, but
they've merged themselves.
This is a paramilitarization of our police departments. You want to know where the funding goes, for example, from DHS. This is what your tax dollars are buying. This is where the funding goes. You're buying these armored vehicles. You can deny, Janet Napolitano can deny, congressmen can deny all day long. Of course, we don't have these armored personnel carriers on the streets of America. Oh yeah, we'll just look at Boston, and there you have armored vehicles, with gun ports and people sitting in positions on top of the vehicle, as if they were in the streets of Afghanistan, for crying out loud. This is what we have. Folks, we're up against the top of the hour. In fact, we're a minute late. Got to tell you, I want to thank you for joining us. More news on the other side, but pay very close attention to what you're not being told about Boston. And this is a story, this is an accounting that is still taking place. It is still evolving. Things are still happening about this. Not on the terrorism side, but on the freedom side of things.
Yeah, and we're going to get into who's saying what actions are being looked at to be taken because of this, and
right on.
Hitting that and other news on the other side. Stay with us. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This Tuesday, April 23rd. We'll be right back.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the break pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP brick packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the Internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the Internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hi, friends. I ask you every day, what steps have you taken today to prepare? Do you have enough food to last you for 90 days, you and your family? Well, do you have enough stored water for 90 days? How about an emergency survival kit? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a solution to these questions, to these problems, to these issues. Just give a call to my friends at American Survival Wholesale, 818-720-0759. That's 818-720-0759. Or better yet, go to their website, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Tell them that Doug and Joe sent you, and you will receive a full-size King James Bible in a waterproof case, free with every survival kit or purchases over $199. That's only if you tell them that Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Don't procrastinate, because they've got products that work on any budget. Again, AmericanSurvivalSupply.com.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013 edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Joe Hagmann here, along with my co-host Doug Hagmann, who is with me today. Last night we did a show without him as he celebrated his birthday and anniversary. And we had Lori from Lori's News Talk Radio on, and I'm not sure he got a chance to listen to that first hour, but I know he did listen to the rest of the show from last night. But it was a great show.
Last hour, I think the last hour and 15 minutes.
It was a really good show. And also Saturday, for those who missed it, we had Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle on.
That was a very powerful show. You know, I would urge everyone, if you did receive benefit from that, just drop Steve a note or Pastor Langford a note, an email, whatever, because, man, there was a Newsmax article, I believe it was, and I think, did I hear you comment on this? I know I did hear you comment on this, where people are basically coming unglued today, how people are just going absolutely crazy.
Yesterday, there was an article from WorldNet Daily, Americans were snapping at alarming rates, I think was the headline. Here it is. Americans snapping by the millions. Terrorism, chaos, fear of the future in the age of Obama is how they worded it. But it's much more than the age of Obama.
Absolutely.
I mean, Obama plays a very small role, almost minute role in all of this big picture, in the big picture. Well, and as to why these people are feeling this way, but
I got to tell you, folks, this is why we've got programs with Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle, the spiritual side of this, because if we do nothing but provide all this information, all this bad stuff, well, what's the flip side of this? What's the antidote to fear? It's knowledge and spiritual preparation, as well as practical preparation. You can have all the silver, gold, and food stored up and everything else, but if your head's not right, if your spirit is not right, if your heart's not right, you're not going to survive what's coming. So you've got to look at this in its entirety. So it's no wonder that people are kind of snapping in, as they say it, in an alarming rate. So once again, the spiritual side of this, the spiritual component to this, you've got to have it. You got to really grasp onto it. But again, we spent the first hour, and then just Joe and I were talking during the break, saying, "Wow, that was a long first hour about very few things." Not really, not from my perspective. After sitting back and thinking about this, and talking with my wife and talking with other people about this, I don't know if people are actually getting the entire Boston thing, where this is headed. Well, and you've got Bloomberg now.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Okay.
To Bloomberg and Rand Paul. Mayor Bloomberg says interpretation of the Constitution will have to change after the Boston bombings. In wake of the Boston Marathon bombings, Mayor Michael Bloomberg said Monday the country's interpretation of the Constitution will have to change to allow for greater security, to stave out or make sure there's no future attacks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, do you believe that? Because we're not driving in horses and buggies because of.
Let me ask you this: there were cameras all over the place, right?
Right.
And where this incident happened. There was footage of the bombing on tape. There was footage, even if a marathon was not being run there.
Right.
There was still surveillance cameras running 24 hours a day, videotaping all over Boston. And New York City is one of the worst cities. They have over 40,000 video cameras, closed circuit TV video cameras.
Second to London in the UK.
And Bloomberg, it's interesting to hear him say this. We're going to have to take away your freedoms to make you more secure. He says, the people who are worried about privacy have a legitimate worry. But we live in a complex world where you're going to have a level of security greater than you did back in the old days, if you will. And our laws and our interpretation of the Constitution, I think, have to change. No, Mr. Bloomberg, our interpretation of the Constitution does not have to change. The Constitution does not have to change. You're, as one would read or say, if you were preaching the gospel, you would be a false preacher or a deceiver. You're doing the same thing here, just with the Constitution. And how is it? We went through this common sense debate during the Sandy Hook aftermath. How is one person's actions, or we don't know if that was even the case, if that Lanza, the son of that Nancy Lanza, was the one who did these shootings, but why would his actions require me to lose freedoms? I'm not calling for more safety. I don't need more security. I feel very secure. I have protection of the Lord, and I know that if He wants me to be gone from this world, I'll be gone from this world, whether I like it or not.
Well,
security.
With respect, I understand that, but let's talk about what Bloomberg is saying first.
And that's what I'm bringing it back to. He's saying basically, well, he's not basically. He is saying, this is his exact words: we live in a complex world, and we're going to have a level of security greater than you did back in the olden days. Our laws and our interpretation of the Constitution have to change.
Well, look. What we're seeing in the terrorist attacks is specifically Boston, because that was the most recent.
Right.
It's a game where the object is to change people's behavior. It's social engineering, and its endpoint behavior is a society that's being conditioned for subjugation.
And he finishes off his comments. The article says, Mr. Bloomberg, who has come under fire for the New York City Police Department's monitoring of Muslim communities and other aggressive tactics, said the rest of the country needs to learn from the attacks. And the other tactics they're talking about are mobile naked X-ray scanners, stop and frisk, stopping and searching you on the street without a warrant. Also, the banning of any soda in a container over 16 ounces. But he says this. He says, look, we live in a very dangerous world. We know there are people out there who want to take away our freedoms. New Yorkers probably know as much, if not more, than anybody else after the terrible tragedy of 9/11. We have to understand that in the world going forward, we're going to have more cameras and that kind of stuff. It's good in some sense. It's different from what we are used to, he said. So listen to what he says. We live in a very dangerous world. We know there are people who want to take away our freedoms. Well, who's taking away our freedoms? It's not the terrorists. They're the ones out there creating terror or injuries through their actions. It is you, the legislators, the politicians, who are taking away our freedoms.
And that's the very point. This is social engineering to the max. By the way, I mean, it's interesting that Mike Bloomberg, for those of you who don't know it, he's got a waterfront estate in Bermuda. Of course, he doesn't want the voters of New York to know about this. It's none of their business. He takes along a contingent of police officers. When he travels, he flies in his private jet with 2 officers, paying as much as $400 a night to put him up at a hotel near his home in Bermuda. The city pays their wages while they're there, as it does whether Mr. Bloomberg is in New York or not. Guns are largely off limits in Bermuda. Even most police officers don't use them there, but the mayor's guards have special permission to carry those weapons, and this has been confirmed even at the New York Times. So this is a guy that's saying essentially, don't do what I do, and don't do what I do, but do what I say, because I know better for you. So we're talking about, once again, the endpoint behavior is social or society conditioned for subjugation, and that's right. So
he goes on to say, of course, we can't leave this out. It really says something bad about us that we have to do it. But our obligation, first and foremost, is to keep the kids safe in schools.
Yeah, it's always about the children. Anytime you hear that.
What about the kids in the bellies of the women who are not born yet? But you don't consider those humans, do you? Because they're not tangible in front of your face, or you don't understand the concept of life and creation. Or it's just maybe your demonic religion that you practice. I don't know. But I just don't, and I never will understand how people can give any kind of credibility to a person who supports gay marriage as a civil rights action, who supports taking away freedoms of Americans under the pretext of safety for the children, at the same time allowing the murder of unborn children occur at a rate that I'm sure it's very sad and alarming. Unborn babies are murdered legally in this country and across the world.
Well, we need more protection from our government than we do from the terrorists at this point, and especially because of the abortions, because of the bombings.
What was the one bumper sticker
of the bombings?
A representative put up on his Twitter account? If a unborn baby had their Second Amendment rights, they wouldn't be aborted, or something along those lines.
Yeah, you get the idea. It's exactly, but I think we need to take the statements from Bloomberg very seriously, because this is the attitude of the elected officials here in this country. We are. This is one other thing I just want to get into a little bit as well. You know, on March 22nd of this year, the movie Olympus has fallen.
And I'm not done on Bloomberg either. So
well, okay. Let's finish. No, let's finish up with Bloomberg, because I think that we need to. Some continuity here. So go ahead and finish up on Mr. Bloomberg if you've got more with him.
Just this last paragraph here. He says we cannot let the terrorists put us in a situation where we can't do those things, which are going. He mentions going to the parks, sporting events, walking down the street with your kids. He says what we can't do is let the protection, what he's saying is the new government protection, get in the way of us enjoying our freedoms. But also, you still want to let people practice their religion, no matter what religion it is. And I think one of the great dangers here is going and categorizing anybody from one religion as a terrorist. That's not true. That would let the terrorist win. That's what they want us to do. Now, first of all, Mr. Bloomberg, you are the one with the intrusive Muslim surveillance in your city, in your Muslim communities, and the aggressive tactics that we talked about earlier in the article. I think it's the other way around. When our freedoms get taken away, that's when the terrorists win. Not when, if their religion teaches them to kill people, it doesn't make it right. You don't have a right to practice that religion. We obviously know there's a clear distinction between somebody or a church not marrying a homosexual couple or being involved in having those kind of people in their clergy or preach ministry because it is against their religion. Now, when killing somebody is allegedly part of your religion, well, killing somebody is against the law, obviously. It's one of the worst laws we could break. We were supposed to love our neighbors and love our enemies the same. We should not be killing anybody. But why does he go here in this last thing he says and talk about religion like this? It is because he understands at the same time that they are moving to demonize Christians. I mean, this applies to everybody except Christians and Christianity. Because go to New York City as a teacher and try to teach Christianity to a child in school. See how long you last in that position.
But it's not Christianity. No. See,
he understands the need for
the morality.
World religion.
It's a morality behind the Christianity. It's not Christianity. You can't go to a public school and teach Christianity any more than you go to a public school and teach Islam. Now,
they do that.
Well, okay, because Islam is really not a religion.
It's informative.
Right, Islam is yeah. We could go back and forth all day on this, but the fact of the matter is, you're talking about a sense of morality here in terms of what is being taught. But see, once again, you're looking at the end game scenario is societal change. And it's telling when Bloomberg, right, for example, wants ID checks to buy a pack of cigarettes, but no checks to vote. He wants us to give up our constitutional rights, and yet he wants people to be able to cross into this country without molestation.
He wants the people, the regular masses of the country, to live a certain way, while him and his cohorts, will say, live exempt to those rules and regulations placed on the masses.
But see, you're stuck on that.
No, I'm not stuck on that. That's just the basic how these people think. We look at the arguments from the gun control debates, and how many people pointed out the bodyguards of these people who are running around saying, we need guns off the streets, the total gun ban to keep us safe. While they themselves don't own guns, they have 7 people that they have hired full time around them that hold guns all the time and are armed. They have protection. The NRA ad speaking to Obama's children having armed guards at the schools, but when bringing that up as an idea to stop more shootings at schools, it was looked upon as giving more access of guns to children. That's how they kind of twisted it. But there's a very wide gap between these people and regular people.
Well, once again, they're thinking on an international level. It's the European model. If you look at Obama, if you look at Bloomberg, if you look at all of these elite, what are we seeing? We're seeing the European model. They're attempting to make America into this European socialist country. Prime example would be healthcare and such. It's all about the socialization, this progressive socialization of this country. But what's the real end game here? Is it the mere socialization of America? No, because what they're doing through this societal engineering, this conditioning, what they're doing is they're preparing for a state religion. They're preparing for, and believe me, this will happen because the progressives are actually demonizing the Christians for being conservative, anti-abortion, my goodness, anti-homosexual marriage. So you demonize the Christians, correct? Now the other side, they're demonizing Islam, and rightfully so, for the jihad. And we had Obama today talking about jihad and never answering the question posed by someone about jihad and Islamists. But that's kind of another subject. But the fact of the matter is, what's the solution? There will be somebody that will walk in here, or the solution will be Christianity? No. Islam? No. The Jewish religion? No. Because all of these cannot coexist. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have a watered down religion. And this is all forming via societal, social engineering toward a single world, a state religion, if you will, or a single world religion under a global governance. Because when the economy collapses, and it will, you're going to have a global currency. You're going to have, and when society collapses, with the wars taking place overseas, with the Syria debacle, and I mean debacle, you're going to have, well, we've got to stop. And we're going to have to use the United Nations too to create this model for the single world governance. So everything we're seeing right now is a step closer toward this new world order, and it's happening right before our eyes, but people can't see it. People aren't putting together the dots. They're not connecting the dots here.
I have dots all over my desk. Literally. No, papers. The Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative.
Of course.
National Infrastructure Protection Plan. There are plans. National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order, issued March 16th, 2012. Talks about how our resources, our infrastructure, will be used in times of not only crisis, but in peace times, and in times of national emergency, meeting the needs of both the civilian and the military demand, they say. Identifying requirements for the full spectrum of emergencies, including essential military and civilian demand. We know they have the internment and resettlement operations document, where in that they speak about religion a great deal. And what they say about religion is very alarming. They say that they are going to teach a nationally accepted version of your religion, and that people who they consider to be extremists won't participate in these teachings because they are too watered down or moderate.
That's correct. And what we're seeing is kind of a macro effect of the microcosm that was Nazi Germany, to the extent what they did with Christianity. And if you understand what Nazi Germany did with Christianity, they morphed it into a state religion that neutered Christianity or completely perverted Christianity. So what we're seeing here is the larger perspective. So all of these, as you put them, dots on your desk, and dots that were relating to you, it's very easy to get caught up in like one thing. For example, the Boston Marathon bombing. It's very easy to get caught up in the analysis of images, but when you take a few steps back and look at the larger picture and look at the blowback from this, and you start connecting the events, and you start connecting Benghazi to Boston, there is a line there because of the same operational protocols.
Right here, the Strategic National Risk Assessment of PD8, a national comprehensive risk-based approach towards a secure and resilient nation, and these are all parts of an issue I'm researching, which is the plans that they have, the Defense Resources Preparedness, the All Hazards Pandemic and Preparedness Reauthorization Act of 2013, the National Infrastructure Protection Plan, the Internment and Resettlements Operations document, in which all these documents have in common the including of other countries, foreign entities, in helping with our stability during some kind of situation in the U.S. Basically saying that if there is an emergency that warrants, or they think warrants, international help, we will kind of merge into a new community where it will be the UN.
This is what it's all about.
The leadership role.
And see, we had the failed League of Nations. Folks, it's so important to go back in history and look at this. This is why I just referenced...
spoke about in the Bible, the League of Nations, the United Nations.
Not by name, of course, but...
that calls them the League, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it talks about this coming upon the earth. It talks about the evil behind their plans of peace and safety.
Right.
And that's the UN's motto, their peace and safety plans, their humanitarian.
I get that.
They're anything but humanitarian.
Well, of course not. But what we're seeing is the erosion of our national sovereignty. We could talk about it. We've talked about this before, but I just want to go back to when we were talking about Bloomberg, about the movie Olympus Has Fallen that was released. By the way, it doesn't, people laugh. They wink, nod, nudge, nudge. Oh, we know Skull and Bones, such a secret society. Well, is there any legitimacy to, for example, the Skull and Bones group? Or is there any legitimacy to CFR and Bilderberger and Trilateral Commission? Of course there is. Of course there is. These are secret societies talked about, as we recall, by Kennedy and others in reference. But it's interesting because Olympus Has Fallen was released on March 22nd, 2013, a very significant date for people, globalists, for internationalists, for the Illuminati. If you get into that, or if you understand how the workings of this, how they telegraph things when something is important. I mean, 322 is, in fact, the number of the Skull and Bones. So now what they're attempting to do here in Olympus Has Fallen, by the way, I never saw the movie, but it's my understanding it's an action-packed thriller with bullets, bombs, and blood, designed to basically entertain the masses. It talks about the overtaking of the White House. Well, folks, it's every day it becomes clearer that the government has already been taken overtaken from within. Olympus has indeed fallen. The United States is under assault, and some say that we've already gone down, not from a rogue terrorist organization, but from within. At present, we've got a guy, and folks, this is so important. We've got a guy sitting in the Oval Office whose constitutional eligibility still remains questionable, despite assertions to the contrary. And I would say this to those who have grown weary of this allegation: let me just ask for tangible and authenticated evidence to prove otherwise, minus the accusations of racism and bigotry. Because in America, for example, when a person applies for a job, the potential employee must provide authentic hard copy documentation to their prospective employer and permit that employer to verify the applicant's documentation. So regardless of what you've seen and what you've heard, this is never done, and it is not some wild conspiracy nonsense. But that aside, America is a captured operation. And part of that operation to bring down America is to water down its moral and social fabric. And part of that, too, and you brought this up, and we need to talk about this, is what's taking place here with the immigration aspect of things. Have you heard about this, ladies and gentlemen? What's going on with immigration? We need to address this.
Yeah, we do. And I have nothing against people coming to America to seek a better life. For themselves and their families. They have every right to do that, as long it's always been a system that you go through a process to become a citizen of the United States, just like
But we've got anywhere between 11 million and 20 million, depending on who you ask, illegal immigrants in this country.
The way they're looking at this is not to help people. It's not to this says on Drudge right here. Report: immigration law would secure democratic victories for generations.
But see, once again, people are not thinking big enough. That headline is not. People are not thinking big enough. The end result, people are still thinking, well, this is going to, by legalizing 11 million, their number, illegal immigrants, by allowing them to vote, of course, this is going to ensure this democratic victory. No, folks, think bigger than that. It's not Republican and Democrat. It is progressive. There is just one party in this country. It's us versus them. Not maybe that was a bad choice of words, but it's the elite. It's the globalists versus the subjugated or the subjects. This is how it is. So to take the 11 million or the 20 million, whichever you want, and to come up with an 884-page bill. By the way, I spent this last couple of days reading this bill, this legislation, to legalize, or this path to legalization. I downloaded a copy and spent several hours going through it. And what this does, okay, just so people understand this, there's this Gang of Eight. Folks, do you know what the Gang of Eight is? Okay, well, because I've heard the term, and you hear things and you think, well, exactly what is this? Well, the Gang of Eight consists of 4 members of the House and Senate Select Committees on Intelligence and 4 leaders of the House and Senate. Now in this case, you've got your designated Republicans, designated Democrats, Republicans and Democrats. The Gang of Eight is a modification of a legal requirement that the president must, quote, ensure that the Congressional Intelligence Committees are kept fully and currently informed of the intelligence activities of the United States, end quote. Now think about that sentence for a minute. So you've got 8 members, 4 members of the House and Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and 4 leaders of the House and Senate together. So that means there's this Gang of 8. And again, this is a modification of a legal requirement that the president.
A gang of 8.
A gang of 8. That's what they're called.
We have a gang of 12 being the Super Congress. We have the committee or commission, the White House Commission, that they just set up for the elections. You have the commission for the Department of Homeland Security. You even have a commission. I was reading off part of this last night. The commission for which was done through an executive order in 2009, November 24th. For the bioethics, right here, establishing the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues.
You might have one person, for example, a department had one person, a member of 18 different committees. You might have a senator, a member of a whole different, a whole bunch of committees. But when you're talking about immigration, and this is the subject at hand, when you're talking about the people here in this country illegally, once again, the official number is 11 million, but I would say it's closer to 20 million. If you do your own research, you can come up with your own number, and I dare say it's closer to 20 million. But think about this. You've got these 8 senators, Republican senators, John McCain and Jeff Flake, both from Arizona. You've got, and think if these names ring any bells on other issues. You've got Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Marco Rubio of Florida. Marco Rubio himself of questionable legitimacy for president, although Republicans or conservatives are championing him to be president, when in fact, because of his parentage, may not be eligible. But then you've got Democratic senators Charles Schumer of New York, Dick Durbin of Illinois, and Robert Menendez of New Jersey, and Michael Bennet of Colorado. There is your Gang of 8. Now, once again, the Gang of 8. In 1980, the Intelligence Oversight Act of 1980 mandates that the CIA fully and currently informs congressional oversight committees of their activities. This is kind of a revision of that, or an upgrade of that. This actually replaces an amendment from 1974. It's called the Hughes-Ryan Amendment, which it supersedes, required that all appropriate committees be notified of intelligence activities. So this isn't an issue for intelligence. I'm talking about, intelligence in terms of whether it be the CIA, DIA, whatever. So this is an intelligence issue we're talking about. So they've come up, this Gang of 8 has come up with this plan, this 884-page plan to make legal, if you will, the illegal people in the country. Well, what's it going to do? It's going to do more, Joe, than make the voters.
Oh, yeah. You're looking at what we see with the administration's push for welfare, basically calling it a stimulus, an economic stimulus. You remember that?
Oh,
they ran the commercials saying, you should get on welfare if you're eligible, even if you don't need it, because it is a form of an economic stimulus.
What we're seeing here, folks, is the Cloward-Piven strategy. Don't forget.
This is something we talked about last night. Dividing people and dividing them and dividing them and dividing them down to basically the most common denominator, where they're so divided against themselves. And we see this in the alternative media, the truth movement. We see it in Christianity. We are divided through denominations in Christianity. We are divided along ways of thinking, or ways we're taught to understand things. We are divided along racial lines in the world, classes, political lines. Now, every issue is a line of division, whether gun rights, abortion, homosexuality, etc., etc. They're dividing us down to a point where none of us will stand together. And
it goes back to and what are the commonalities with the Boston event and not only the causation and the motives, but the blowback from that, or the effects of that. You're once again, this is the conditioning of the populace to accept a police state. If you take, for all of the articles Alex Jones has, or if you take all of the articles, we'll say Glenn Beck has, or all of the articles that the American Thinker might have, or News with Views, if you take all of those and go dig deeper into those, you'll see that at the root of all of these is the societal conditioning toward this single governance, single form of governance that will require you to be disarmed, that will require you to use a single global currency, that's going to require you to trade your privacy for the illusion of security. This is where we're headed. And as you had pointed out earlier, we're talking about something that has appeared and has been prophesized. Has appeared in the Bible and has been prophesized. But, but here's the issue with the reform. What they're doing and what is being pushed. Think about this.
You see the title of the article from Politico? Napolitano, immigration bill, important step. An important step to what?
Well, it's to balkanize this country. First of all, it undermines border security. It takes away our sovereignty. It waters things down. It makes it's almost like, and I was thinking about this as I was reading it in the quiet of my hotel room as my wife slept, and I was reading this. It takes away our national identity.
It's a soft North American Union, like a soft martial law we see in effect.
Yes, of course. But the very people that are behind this gang of eight, the four Republicans, so to speak, and four Democrats, if you still subscribe to that right-left paradigm, are acting as one to push this through, along with Napolitano and Obama and all of these people. You've got this crazy plan that we're watching unfold right before our eyes, folks, that is taking us on a path toward toward balkanizing. I guess that's the only way I can put it, balkanizing the United States of America, because you're not going to have any type of responsible type of behavior on behalf or on the part of the people here illegally. It's kind of like the DREAM Act. Picture the DREAM Act without an age limit. That's exactly what this is.
Now think of this along these lines, because this is what we were starting to talk about. I was getting into last night. The thinking of us as Americans, the way we uphold the Constitution. So many Americans, and rightfully so, use and cling to the Constitution, but most do so at their own peril, not understanding why we have those rights, where they came from the Lord. Not having a basic biblical understanding is basically a spiritual death. If you do not know that, there is no point in standing up for an America if you don't understand
if I hear
where
you
the principles or
what you're
foundations have come from. And I was using the example of the men cheering and the people cheering in the street as the second suspect was said to be arrested from the Boston Marathon incident. And as these people were clapping in the street like they were when Osama bin Laden was said to be arrested or thrown in the ocean or whatever they said they did to him, who are these people going to be clapping for next time when the enemy, only the enemy as labeled by the government, says they have disposed of them or taken care of them?
Okay,
it could be anybody. I mean, it could be Christians. It could be...
Okay.
But we need to stop clinging to nationality so much. No. Stop clinging to Americanism.
No. I think what you're meaning to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but allow me to say this. God has given us these unalienable or inalienable rights.
God has given
Okay,
us free will.
but He's given us the rights that are delineated by the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In other words, what I'm saying is your rights as an American come from God, but they are delineated by the Constitution. So we use the Bible as our spiritual instruction manual, and we use the Constitution as the model for our country. But first and foremost, we're Christians, and
Okay.
but we're also Americans. And when you begin to erode either the spiritual component or the American component, the national component of that, then you're not doing. Look, you can be spiritual all day long and be in the middle of Kenya, okay? But we're in America. The people listening to this broadcast in America, we have a constitution, and if you are listening to this in Australia, New Zealand, or Europe, you know that America is the firewall, the last firewall against the globalization of this planet.
Okay.
We fall, so does the planet.
And I understand all that, but now, knowing that these rights come from God, then the whole world has these rights, not just America. Wouldn't that be the case? I mean, God didn't say, well, I think this new nation, America, should have all these freedoms and have the ability to be free in all areas of their life, where I see these other nations as needing to be
well, I don't know how to answer that.
Well, and this is what I'm getting at, and maybe I'm not making myself clear enough, or maybe I'm not making myself clear at all. We are created by God, our Lord and Father. He created the whole earth. We know He creates governments, institutes men in power, and has done so throughout time. To say that the rights we were given in the Constitution come from God, that comes from the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. So we have a law that killing is against the law. We have a rule that says if you kill somebody, you're going to go to jail because it's not right.
Right.
Now, these are based upon the Ten Commandments. These are not separated in Scripture as rights for men. These are it's a blueprint on.
But you're talking about two different things. You're talking about first of all, you're talking about the Scripture, and then you're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about the United States.
But what you're saying is that, and what the Declaration of Independence says, and that God gave us these rights. Well, He gave us the free will to decide whether we were going to follow Him or not. And I think that's, and those who do follow Him, He gives what people ask for, what they seek. If they're seeking in Him, He'll give the knowledge, He'll give the confirmations, He'll give the miracles to the hidden manna, the things that you need. Well, what I'm basically saying is people cling to the nation more than they do to the Bible. People cling to the Constitution more than they do to Scripture. People cling to the idea of America more than they do to heaven. And I think that
I understand that.
Is detrimental to your spiritual health, if that's
which is why we have the shows that we have with Steve Quayle and Pastor Langford and others. I mean, it's but what we're talking about here, this is a long way from this immigration topic that we're talking about. What's immigration going? What's this bill going to do to this country? Well, this immigration bill is going to rip this country apart. How? It grants amnesty. It provides a framework for legalization for, I would say, venture 20 million people who are here without lawful legitimacy. I mean, anyone who is in here in the United States, according to this bill, before last year, before 2012, qualifies for this amnesty. But there's so much fraud that is associated and allowed by this, because this bill provides no proof, requires no proof that applicants have been here for several years. I believe the bill says you have had to be in the country for more than 5 or 7 years. I'm not sure. I can't remember. My notes are not on my desk. But
sound on BTR. Hold on.
But and I'm going to keep talking as there's not a problem. Look, you've got the fiscal costs. You've got the actual cost to us, you and me, folks, the taxpayer. This plan, this bill, this legislation does not account for any government benefits, including but not limited to welfare and entitlement benefits that would be paid to those who are legalized over their lifetimes. So this is going to strike once again at our soft underbelly, which is our economy, which is the U.S. dollar. Okay, that's, I got to tell you, that's something huge. It's huge. The government spending, this is a Trojan horse for government spending. The funding for illegals is unrestricted. One article that I had read provides one example where $6.5 billion is a comprehensive immigration reform trust, which includes a $2 billion slush fund for border security. Well, the problem with that, see, our government currently spends $1 trillion more per year than it takes in. So adding this new unlimited spending commitment just adds fuel to the economic fire. The cost of implementing this bill is beyond even our calculation. It just rips apart any type of financial, economic, fiscal discipline. It's now, by the way, this bill requires a certification, if you will, to stem the flow of illegal immigrants across the borders before additional steps in the legalization process can proceed. But here's the problem. There only has to be a promise and not an actual event for border security. In other words, it would be like saying, well, we're going to go ahead and institute the provisions of this bill, that would legalize I'm going to say 20 million illegals here in this country. We're going to legalize them, but only after we address the issue of border security. But how are we going to do that? You just promise that you're going to increase border security, and then we'll go ahead and initialize, proceed with the legislation. That is what is taking place. So it is a really bad idea. But here's the key idea, the key thing. The key thing is you're looking at 8 people within our government on both sides of the political divide that have gotten together and have the backing of Obama and also Napolitano to essentially balkanize this country. And yes, there's a spiritual component to this, but there's also the practical component, which will send people running to the spiritual component, because it's going to, there will be issues here that we cannot solve practically. We've got to solve spiritually first. But what I'm saying is that you're not looking at your 1950s America. You're not looking at your 1850s America, and certainly you're not looking at your 1776 America. You're looking at an America that's a part of a global initiative. And this global initiative is represented by these 8 people, these 8 men who say that some say they're conservative, some say they're progressive, some say that they're Republican, or some are Republican, some are Democrat. But it's all one single party. Folks, we've reached the top of the hour. You're tuned into the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for this, the 23rd day of April 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. In studio with me is Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. The last hour, sponsored by Granland Firearms. That's Granland Firearms of British Columbia.
Also, listeners, Blog Talk Radio has started a dialogue with a representative. They say they are currently experiencing an issue with one of their hardware, which is causing issues with the studio at the moment, whatever that means. So most of the people are over listening on Christians United Broadcasting Network.
That's good. Go to
Hagmann and HagmannReport.com.
That's right. I'll spell it out. The Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. I'll tell you what, we are giving Blog Talk Radio every chance in the world. We're standing behind them. We are giving them every chance in the world to fix whatever is wrong with their system. And we would appreciate, given the fact that we have been patient and been patient and been patient, and listener fatigue sets in, and I understand this. So
show host fatigue.
Those people from Blog Talk Radio listening to this, please understand there is a level of listener fatigue that will not be saved. And whether the bottom line is our word will get out. The information will get out, whether it's through your platform or not. You take our money, or you know what? You lose our money. Okay, it's as simple as that. We are not going to put up with these sound issues much
I just hope
longer.
This is whatever they were doing, restructuring the site, restructuring their business organization, that this will be an end to the problems. Hopefully they're fixing this so that they are creating a way to prevent future issues like this from happening.
Yes, one would think. But I'll tell you what, the Christians United Broadcasting Network, which simulcasts our show, that's the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Sound issues are fine there. Thank you for Troy. Thank you for your fine service, your great equipment, and for accommodating us on your broadcasting network. Again, Absolutely. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Idleta Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 3, the third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for this, the 23rd day of April 2013. Once again, we have covered not a wide array of news, but a very important segment of news. There's a distinct difference here. We can talk all day long about different issues, but which are the most important ones? Is it Bloomberg mentioning, well, gee whiz, you're going to have to reinterpret the Constitution. It's going to have to change after the Boston bombing, or is what's the most, or is it the Ricin issue, the Ricin suspect released from jail? No, it is the societal evolution, or the attempt to change our society.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me.
I don't know if that's Blog Talk, if that's Troy. I don't think, Troy, is that you? That's not you, Troy. Okay.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just sit back and relax.
I'm just going to turn all the volumes down.
Apparently, what you're bearing witness to is the efficiency and the efficiency of Blog Talk Radio. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. I apologize, but I got to tell you something. We've been patient, and you've been patient. And we appreciate that.
I did ask if this was related to their problems last week, and they said that they have not been informed as to what the issues were, and if they were related to the denial of service attacks last week. Well, but we did shows on Saturday, and we did shows yesterday that were fine. No issues.
Maybe it's me. I don't know. All right. A few other things too. This immigration issue. Go ahead.
I just want to say this for the callers on hold. I don't know if we'll be able to take calls tonight on Blog Talk. Apparently, if the sound is down, I doubt the calls, and the commercials are down. I doubt the calls we'll be able to take those. But
this, frankly, this is publicly humiliating. This is. It really is, and my patience. I can tell you this, folks. My patience is running very thin with that, with that platform, and if we have to change platforms, we in fact will. But anyway, that said, what we're witnessing, ladies and gentlemen, is, as you well know, is the globalization of. We're watching this unfold. I happened to hear Sean Hannity say today a couple of things about we're watching the transformation of America, but limited to the Republican and Democrat divide. I'm thinking, my goodness, how much more evidence do we all need to see the bigger picture here, to see who's really in charge, to see the effects of the Council on Foreign Relations, to see the effects of the Trilateral Commission, to see the failure of the League of Nations and then morphing it into the United Nations, and then seeing the various UN NGOs and non-governmental agencies and all of the initiatives of the United Nations. It's incredible. So we cannot look at this as a very small component. Now, somebody emailed me and asked me whether Al Harbi was in fact related to Osama bin Laden or bin Laden's son. There's a resemblance there. It's unfortunate, however, because of the, dare I say, the incestuous aspect of things and the vast procreation among the bin Laden family, that I really can't tell you if he's a blood relative. It would not surprise me if he was in fact a blood relative. And of course, I'm referring to the suspect in the initial suspect in the Boston Marathon bombing, Abdul Rahman Ali Isa Al Salmi Al Harbi, a man in the hospital, a man that was visited by the First Lady, the First Lady of the United States, that is Michelle Obama, among others, a man whose status as a terrorist in this country was suddenly changed, and usually that only happens by death or deportation, okay? In this case, he was given... His event file with the FBI was completely changed, but I do not know if he is in fact a blood relative or relative by marriage of Osama bin Laden. Once again, it wouldn't surprise me. But you go back in time, folks. Go back to the Prescott Bush years. You go back even long before Bush was president, and of course, hearken energy, the oil companies, the oil relationships that we have, and the future, by the way, is all. And you look at the creation of this pan-Islamic caliphate that we've got going through the Arab Spring. This was not, I mean, this was started, of course, by Obama in terms of the actual practical application of Arab Spring. But Arab Spring was...
I would say PNAC and...
Well, right, the architecture was
Bush and one, and yeah, okay.
Right, but the actual practical implementation of the Arab Spring came under Obama's watch, and who better? A Muslim sympathizer or a cultural Muslim, if you will, in the White House, if not a full-fledged practicing Muslim, you've got in the White House. And of course, now you've got the director of the CIA, John Brennan, who is a practicing, or who is reportedly a practicing Muslim. And then, of course, on the conservative side, you've got Grover Norquist, the anti-tax guy for the Bush administration, who is really created the environment where this Islamic expungement, or the expungement of anything anti-Islam, in the files of the FBI, in the files of DHS, it really began under his watch. So we had two towers fall allegedly at the hands of 15 Saudis and 4 other Islamic terrorists, and now you've got the expungement of anything Islamic from the files of the FBI and DHS. Once again, this began right after 9/11 and is taking it's going right into 2013, even with more vigor. And at the center of all of this is not just Obama, not just Biden, not just this particular Congress, but you've got a group of people who are known as the globalists, who are taking Islam, using it as a tool to change this country from a Judeo-Christian country into a secular country. Why? Because you cannot have Sharia law coexist with democratic law, with our laws. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to tear down the structure, tear down the laws of this land. And that also involves, by the way, you can't. That also involves the religious aspect of this. You've got to redefine the whole entire spiritual religious foundation of this country in order to accommodate Islam. So Islam is the perfect tool, both politically and religiously, for the New World Order. That's how Islam fits in here. It's the perfect tool to tear down the United States of America. It fits. It's the greatest tool there is. And see, the plan is brilliant, really, in its simplicity. I've got to tell you, boy, imagine that. Imagine just imagine the level, the three-dimensional thought process of the internationalists. You have Islam as the religion or the political structure. You start ripping at Islam, blaming them for the ills of the world, which by definition their religion calls for jihad, and contrary to what Obama said, I believe it was in a speech today, jihad does not have multiple meanings. It has one meaning, and that's really a holy war against the infidel. That's what jihad is. So you're setting up Islam. You're using Islam as a tool because their religion and their political structure is most it fits best with the plans for global governance, because you cannot
It
have
has the element of violence in there.
Absolutely. So, folks, you've got to think bigger. We have to think, when we look at Boston, when we look at any event that takes place, think beyond the event. Think beyond, yes, you've got all of these components there at the event. Then you have 4 days later, 96 hours later, you've got this massive manhunt. Then you've got martial law. You've got people either escorted into their homes or taken out of their homes at gunpoint by a paramilitary force. All of this because of an Islamic attack. Now, this is, but all of this, what's all of this working toward? A seat. The very people who are involved in, like the Bloombergs, for example, who are talking about the changing our laws and our constitutional rights, and the Gang of Eight on the immigration reform. All of these are interconnected. They're all internationalists, and their ultimate goal is to rip down the United States, make it part of a new global world order. That's the end result. We're getting reports constantly, by the way, folks, of training, military training of foreign troops in this country, in urban areas, with different in different parts of the country. I've got to tell you, everything is speeding up. Everything is speeding up at the moment, and you've got an environment right now where there's no way that we can have an intelligent conversation on any topic of substance. You're not going to have any. We're not getting any type of truth from Hillary Rodham Clinton, from Obama, from Biden, from any public official. You're not getting any truth. It's all lies. There are multiple lies. We are in a poker game. This is Casino Royale. And, it's that, I mean,
it's more serious than that. Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote the book, the Grand Chess Match.
Right.
And that's how they look at it. Really, as they have all the data, analytical data, the trends data. They have their what would you call them? The people who see the remote viewers, their They're psychics. They have their...
Yeah, you got to be careful with that as well, too. Okay.
They have all these... so they have so much of this private and government sector resource devoted to the study of behavior, the study of the future, the study of the trends on the internet and how it relates to human behavior, the trends in what's happening in the news and how humans react to that information. And that's what they do, is compile this information and use it to understand how we will react to some kind of action they take against us. So that's how they figure how they map out their solutions before they create the problem.
It's true. Very true.
Somebody in chat, 4D profiling. And yeah.
Say that again.
4D profiling.
What does that mean? Because what are you referring to?
I'm not sure exactly, but the way from what I understand, it is they are mapping you. They're mapping. Okay.
Okay.
They say four is trends with timing.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, they're mapping you. They're mapping your thoughts, your actions based on your reactions to something. We'll say Obama comes out with an executive order tomorrow making all magazines in the USA that carries over 10 rounds illegal. They will use the reaction of the people as a gauge to see how what they can expect further down the road if they do take other actions, or if this action would warrant or bring about some kind of unwanted circumstance or problem from the people. They know how to better divide up these people who are coming against them and deal with them.
Okay, earlier today, and this kind of segues into something I believe is important. Earlier during the broadcast, you were talking about, you had just briefly mentioned this, and I think it was on air. It was about the executive action about firearms importation. Did you mention that on air, I think, briefly?
Firearms?
Importation, or press.
Yes,
it was,
okay,
yeah.
President Obama is... This is an article, I found this is important. Obama is looking to ban importation of ammo, magazines, accessories without congressional approval. This is over the course of the last month. This is from Mark Salvo from SHTF Plan website.
Well, this also appears, by the way, on places like theexaminer.com.
On InfoWars too, yeah.
Okay. So what we're seeing is and I don't. Well, go ahead. What are you seeing there? Because I've got an entirely. I think I've got the same thing you've got.
Okay. This article goes on to say it appears that the Obama administration is taking executive action on firearms. They're taking, it says, take a few minutes to read this. And the article is, after Senate setback, Obama quietly moving forward with gun regulations. And we heard Biden say that they would do this. We heard Obama say that they would do this. We heard Nancy Pelosi say that, while she said the NRA's victory was just in the now, the gun ban or gun legislation, the gun laws would be inevitable.
Well, okay. See, BTF, or Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, a final rule was published today in the Federal Register. And news release was issued as well by the Department of Health and Human Services, followed up with a notice to be published. Anyway, there are two developments, all but ignored by the mainstream press, even though Biden announced, I think it was a week ago, thereabouts, that this administration, Obama, would be using executive orders to advance gun control. Now, see, this goes back to what you were talking about, and we were talking about before as well, about kind of dividing and conquering. All right,
Right.
But see, the importation of defense articles, for example, and defense services, U.S. munitions import list, references executive orders, amends ATF regulations, and clarifies, and I use that in quotation marks, that's my word, in quotation marks, the authority of the Attorney General. And think about this, Eric Holder now, to designate defensive articles and defensive services as part of the statutory USML for purposes of permanent import controls. In other words, what is being said here is we're watching an end around of our Constitution by an executive order that directly affects, and a final rule from the ATFE that directly affects the importation of certain firearms and munitions. So we're being ripped apart from the inside. We're being dismantled from the inside. No more. If you've got, for example, if you've got an AR-15 or an AK-47 or a gun a weapon or a gun that is on the ban list with the mere stroke of a pen, without any consent of Congress, the ATFE could make any gun part or accessory. That includes the magazines and even the ammunition for that gun that was originally manufactured here, like for sporting purposes or for civilian use. They could be designated now for military use only. So it would be taking the guns out of the hands of the American people. This is what we're seeing right now. So in other words, if you've got like an AR-15 and that's redesignated as a military weapon, you think you're going to be able to get parts for it? Absolutely not. How about ammunition for it? No way.
What about for my F-16 fighter jet out back?
Well, no, you can get that. All you have to do is just actually say you're Muslim Brotherhood, and you'll be fine.
Oh, the MB exemption, yes.
Right. So all of this kind of, this is a classic example. This is classic of what's taking place here. The
Obamacare being implemented now. The taxes,
that too. Yeah, all of this.
The cost of Medicare going up, and private insurance premiums going up. You have the taxes being raised. You have prices of goods and services being raised. You have inflation of our money is raising. At the same time, the government's wages are being raised. Who is not getting a raise? The regular, everyday working people out there. They are actually getting their money stolen through the savings, putting money in the bank. They're not getting rewarded as they used to be through interest by doing what they're supposed to do and saving, to help take care of their own retirement, their own self-dependency. That's being taken away from them. And it's not even a matter of choice for people anymore, to the point where they can choose to be a part of this system or move away. I mean, people are stuck. Think of the people who are on welfare that need it versus those who don't. There are many more who need welfare than there are those who are on it who don't need it. I'm sure of that. But it's these people who take advantage of the system, and then you have the people who do need it. And then you have, if they make the illegal immigrants legal, they will be, I'm sure, a big part of this increase of food stamps, which was doubled under President Bush. It was doubled under Obama. The deficit
You
Same.
mentioned something just moments ago about how we're being robbed. Okay,
Right.
through
We're being
inflation,
robbed
right?
through inflation. We're being robbed
Folks,
through the banks, the
but
savings rate, interest rates. We're
did
being
you
robbed.
did you see this? Joe, I don't know. We didn't have a chance.
I haven't had the internet all day, so I probably didn't see it.
Folks, did you see this? This is probably one of the most interesting stories about that very issue, about how inflation is robbing us of our purchasing power. There is a woman in China today, right now, as we speak, who is suing the Federal Reserve after discovering that the real value of her $250 that she put in a bank account in America in 2006 has shrunk by some 30% due to inflation. Did you see that?
No.
Oh man!
So a lady in China put $250 in a savings
story
account in 2006, and she expected some kind of return of it, like interest, or she's upset because the what she could purchase in 2006 is more expensive. She can no longer purchase the same amount of things with that money that she used to be able to.
Yeah, here's what she did in 2006. She's in this country. She puts $250 into a bank account. Today, 2013, she realizes that her purchasing power of that $250 has decreased by 30%. So what she's saying is, wait a minute, I put $250 in a savings account here in the United States, and the bank kept their promise. They kept my money. I still have my money, but my ability to buy things has shrunk by 30%. Who's responsible? Well, her nephew is an attorney. Li Zhen is his name. He's an attorney, and and you've got to really appreciate the beauty of this, because now they're thinking, well, wait, why is this? Well, they began asking questions. The woman and her son began asking questions. And of course, they found out that, wait a minute, this is because of the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing and abuse of monopoly in issuing the currency. And so what she did, what they're doing is they're suing in court, in the U.S. court, the Federal Reserve for the 30% loss of buying power. Now, you might think, oh, this is so crazy because it's only $250. A woman in China. This is not a story. This could grow into a class action suit like you can't believe. Think about this. If people got on board and fully understood that they were losing their buying power, what would this do to the Federal Reserve? The lawyer, this Li Zhen, called the lawsuit litigation for the public good, and once again, he's alleging abuse of monopoly in issuing currency, citing the fact that we're printing money and we're adding zeros and therefore debasing our dollar, and therefore actually
so some lady who has $250 in a bank from another country understands the financial system and how criminal it is more than 95% of Americans who live in that system.
And exactly. And this is, to me, this is so beautiful, because you've got somebody from a different country who's looking at it from a different perspective. And isn't that kind of what we talk about? When we look at the news, it's kind of from a different perspective. We're from a 3D way. He said, since the Fed is a private institution which enjoys a monopoly over issuing the currency, the U.S. dollar holders can sue it for printing too much money. This could be a big thing. I just love it. I just, to me, this is people waking up to the globalist monster, because the Fed is part of this globalist monster. I just look, whether it's $250, $25, or 25 grand, the situation's the same. We're being robbed every single day.
And the second that movement gets any traction, I guarantee you another bombing, shooting, deviation from what is important. Obviously, they will.
But I had to, I just had to bring that into the
I understand equation. I did not see that today, but that's something I definitely would have picked out for the show tonight, because
that's such a beautiful thing where somebody from, I mean, look, to me, anytime someone, she gets it, the attorney gets it, she gets it, and I know the audience gets it. Therefore, the audience does appreciate the fact that this is I don't even know how to describe it. This is just a beautiful thing where, hey, bang, lights go on. It's like, oh, now I get it. I just would like more people in the United States to understand. And we're going to be doing, this is something after my return and my rejuvenation, because I feel rejuvenated, actually. Even though I'm up at 2 o'clock reading 844 pages of immigration bill. But anyway, I just feel, so we're going to be doing some videos on this, and we're going to be getting back into doing videos here, updates, real short updates. But that's just beautiful. The whole thing is beautiful. Oh.
And on the video part, I actually went and bought some video software to be able to make videos, and now I just got to learn how to use it.
Yeah, and so we're growing all the time, and we want to thank you, folks. Look, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your patience and for your assistance with us, because we're listener-supported broadcasts. I just have to throw that out there. Thank you for everybody, everything that you're doing. Every single scrap of paper, every note that you've written, it's just, I've saved, and it's just, we've read over, Joe and I have read over and over the well wishes and the compliments, and want to thank you for that. And even if it's $1 or $10 that you send in to help keep us on the air, so we can improve and buy the software, so we can grow, we want to thank you for that. Man, these are tough times. When you have, but just ask the woman in China. These are tough times. We're watching our money evaporate right before our very eyes. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you again. By the way, as we predicted now, did you see this news? CNN is reporting that the Israeli defense minister has said that Syria is using sarin gas on protesters.
Okay, no, I didn't see that, but I saw that they Hagel says that they've authorized, Israel has authorized a strike against Iran, and I did not read the article or see if they planned on following through with the strike or what the plans were. We've seen this rhetoric many times in the past, them talking about this, and I'm looking for the story now. But
actually, the two are very much related. You've got the reshaping of the Middle East with Syria at the forefront. See, folks, I mean, and Joe, I just want to say this. Syria is the start. This is where World War III will start, is in Syria. It's not going to be in Israel against Iran. That's the sideshow to Syria. Syria being accused of using chemical weapons. It could very well be Israel strikes at Syria, Damascus. But we know from Scripture, do we not, where Damascus is going to be inhabitable.
Okay.
So, but here's how we have to look at this with regard to the Middle East situation. Syria is going to be at the heart of this. Israel is going to be playing a big part, and Iran is also going to be playing a big part. But Iran is not going to be where World War III starts. It's going to start in Syria.
Okay, and I was just searching through news and looking for one of the stories you mentioned. I came across this: the 3 murder charges against the Pennsylvania abortion doctor have been dismissed or tossed out by Mary Claire Dale.
Okay, now,
Mary
but
Claire.
how many counts of murder does he have against him?
I'm not sure. I am reading this here. A judge has thrown out some of the murder charges against the Philadelphia abortion provider involving babies allegedly born alive. Common Pleas Court Judge Jeffrey Meinhardt dismissed 3 first-degree murder charges against Dr. Kermit Gosnell. Meinhardt has not explained, Meinhardt being the judge, the reason behind his ruling. Prosecutors have argued that the babies were viable, and the staff of the abortion doctor cut them in the back of the neck to kill them. Defense lawyer Jack McMahon had argued Tuesday that there is not one piece of objective scientific evidence that anyone was born alive at the clinic. He still faces charges that he killed the patient and 4 other babies allegedly born alive.
You know, boy, among the
grinding
relatively
my teeth while I'm reading that. I mean, that's how
this. I've got to tell you, this is really we have failed our listeners by not reporting more about Kermit Gosnell's abortion trial. The media has not been covering it, and it's among the relatively few cases that could be specifically documented, because there's been collusion on the part of the workers there with Gosnell at the clinic in Philadelphia. Was a particular baby boy. His 17-year-old mother was almost 30 weeks pregnant. Folks, that's 7.5 months. Labor was induced. An employee estimated that the child, the unborn, or the born baby, the baby, his birth weight was about 6 pounds. The baby boy, A, as he's referred to, was breathing, was moving, was a normal baby when Dr. Kermit Gosnell severed his spine and put the body in a plastic shoebox for disposal.
What kind of doctor?
Why?
I mean, what kind of not even doctor? What kind of person? What kind of human could do such a thing?
You know, and look, what kind of press refuses to cover this? What Dr. Gosnell, I mean, I'm not even call him Dr. Gosnell, he was the operator of an abortion mill. It was not a clinic. It was called the the Women's Medical Society. It began in 1972. Folks, think about the lives that were snuffed out since 1972 by this one man. He spent almost 4 decades running this establishment. Infant beheadings, severed baby feet in jars, a child screaming after it was delivered alive during an abortion procedure. His mill was known for its willingness to carry out late-term abortions, and it's illegal. Of course, it's illegal in Pennsylvania for killing a child after the initial 24 weeks of pregnancy. But you know, here's the kicker. Word spread about the doctor's services. So, you know what? Women from all around would go to his clinic to take part of his services. What does that tell us? We are morally, spiritually, and the bankruptcy here is beyond anything I could possibly describe. By the way, in case you want to know, what did this place look like? Blood on the floor, a stench of urine filled the air, a flea-infested cat was wandering around the facility. I'm not going to go on. You get the idea.
Yeah, it's just absolutely disgusting. Also, on that note, Obama to keynote a Planned Parenthood fundraiser.
There you go.
amid new concerns about brutality of legal forms of abortion. And this is the Washington Times words, because in my words, there is no legal form of murder or abortion. Anyway, Obama plans to deliver the keynote address at Planned Parenthood Federation of America's annual fundraiser dinner Thursday. The theme of the dinner, to be held in Washington, is A Time for Care.
Is that C-A-I-R or C-A-R-E?
No, C-A-R-E.
Okay. CARE, by the way, folks, for those unfamiliar with it, is the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Yeah. But really, a time for care? Or is this a time for, we see at the Bohemian Grove, they throw away their care, right? This is what they do in front of their deity out there. Is they?
Oh yeah, the Moloch, the owl. Yes.
Yeah.
And folks, not to take you away from that, because I just want to say this: the more I learn about the Bohemian Grove, the more I learn about the Council on Foreign Relations, the more I learn about the Trilateral Commission, the more I learn about the Council 300 and these various groups. I got to tell you, the more the satanic aspect of this, the anti-biblical, the anti-Christ, anti-Christical, if that's a word, aspect comes into play. Go ahead and continue with what you were talking about, the anti-care.
A time for care is the theme of this Planned Parenthood fundraiser that Mr. Obama will be the keynote speaker at.
Man,
and he goes on to say that Mr. Seeley Richards said Mr. Obama has done more than any president in history for women's health and rights. So she is delighted to have him help provide or promote the gala dinner with his presence. He understands that access to birth control and preventative health care and economic issues for women and their families, she said in a statement. We fought alongside him to ensure that women's health access was expanded in the landmark Affordable Health Care Act, and now we have fought hard to ensure that the full promise of health care reform is realized for millions of women.
Well, folks, if you go back into time, July 17th, 2007 to be exact, before he became the putative president of the United States, he gave a presentation at the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. There are videos out there of his speech. There's transcriptions of his speech. At any rate, I just want to say that he was for it. He was just unbelievably on behalf of this.
The Washington Times also points out the Gosnell, this animal Gosnell doctor, abortionist opponents quickly seized on the news, arguing that Mr. Obama should rescind his agreement to speak or even attend the dinner, considering the gruesome revelations emanating from the trial of Philadelphia abortion doctor Gosnell. These accounts by former clinic staff have shell-shocked the nation, and it is incumbent upon the president to reconsider his support for the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood, which last year profited from abortion $87 million, committing over 300,000 abortions.
Well, think about those numbers.
So not only are they killing innocent children in their mother's womb, they're making multi-millions of dollars off doing so. And I'll read this last part of the article that...
Well, because I've got something, when you get to this point, I just want to make a comment about this person, but so go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to skip right here to what I sent you. Mr. Obama's new health care law included some new mandate requiring most U.S. employers including religiously affiliated hospitals and schools, to provide health care plans that cover what they say contraceptive services for female employees free of charge.
Exactly.
So now we see this. I mean, we knew Planned Parenthood was setting up offices in schools. Now they're coming right out and saying, yes, not only does Obamacare, which they denied that, remember they denied that this was even true? Just like the death panels, just like the raise in cost and the raise in the cost to individual premiums all the way to the deficit. I mean, everything about this was a lie.
Well, one thing that we have to ensure or make sure of here is that we understand the evolution, and pardon that word because maybe I've overused that, but how this has evolved. Think back. Margaret Sanger. She was an American birth control activist before birth control was even thought of. She was born back in like 1879, 1880, I don't know, somewhere in late 1800s. Okay, she was actually a nurse who became a sex teacher, a sex educator. She was the person. When you hear the term birth control, it came from the lips of Margaret Sanger. The first birth control clinic in the United States, established as Planned Parenthood, was through Sanger's efforts. Sanger, she also contributed to the landmark U.S. Supreme Court case which legalized contraception in the United States. She's a frequent target of criticism, including ours. But she was criticized and has been criticized because she's a supporter of eugenics. And yet we have, and remember this, and this is how the things have evolved. In 2009, Hillary Clinton compared Margaret Sanger, the very person I spoke about, this racist, by the way, because Margaret Sanger was also very big into talking about extermination or, euthanizing black people. But she compared Sanger to Thomas Jefferson. In fact, she seemed to think that Jefferson was a lesser person than Sanger because he held slaves, yet Sanger wanted to kill the blacks. In 1939, by the way, Sanger, which is Clinton's heroine, and self-admitted, she said, we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate, and this is her quote, exterminate the Negro population. Oh, man.
51 or 52% of African American babies, I think, in the last 30 years were never born.
And that's a sin. And we need to make this a racist issue or a race issue, but my goodness, they're the biggest. They're the victims in this case.
There are Breitbart people that have recorded phone calls. I think it's Breitbart. They called Planned Parenthood. Somebody called Planned Parenthood. This is on YouTube. A bunch of videos, audios, and they were asking if they donated money, if their money could specifically be used towards aborting other races, babies from other races. And Planned Parenthood said, of course.
Wow. Well, this is the Nazi eugenics tactics. Look, it's just not, once again, it's not Clinton as a progressive. You've got this globalist element here. You've got a number of prominent families who are responsible for funding and promoting eugenics in this country. And of them, of course, let me name them, Rockefellers, the Carnegies. Oh, you hear about the Carnegie Institute, the Rockefeller. No. look, these people want eugenics. The Harriman family, the Osborne family, no, I'm not talking about Ozzy, no, okay. The Rockefellers and the Osbornes, for example, are very significant. John, for example, John Sr. contributed an extremely huge amount of money to build the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory back in the early 1900s, which, by the way, housed the Eugenics Records Office from 1910 to 1944. Rockefeller also, his influence also spread overseas to Germany, where Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Psychiatry and the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Eugenics Anthropology resided. So this is a globalist agenda, and these institutes became the centers for the Nazi eugenics programs that were used by Hitler. Folks, look at the connections here. Connect the dots. My goodness, we got to connect the dots. And we've got Hillary Clinton as she is. Hillary Clinton.
What's she doing these days? She's
well, she's we've got Hillary Clinton just singing the praises of Margaret Sanger. But what's she doing these days, folks? Do you believe that she that she is looking at a run for the 2016 presidency? That, of course, is not really a big leap in
her with
logic.
Her and Mrs. Mr. whatever Napolitano are the two front runners.
Yes,
they're in the Democratic Party, and Mr. Obama.
I would urge everyone, please, if hearing the broadcast, to take a look. If you haven't read the report I wrote yesterday, posted yesterday at CanadaFreePress.com and HomelandSecurityUS.com, please do so, and please leave a comment at CanadaFreePress.com about this, because this does get into, and I'm circling back around now to the beginning of the program, the blood trail from Boston to Benghazi. Folks, we're not being told everything. Of course, we know that. That's why you tune in to listen to us, because we try to cover all of the areas. But I
want to say this, if we can. This little piece of news. I know we played an audio clip maybe a week and a half ago on the rain tax in Maryland. Do you remember that?
I do indeed. I couldn't believe it, and I can't believe what I'm hearing now.
Well, there's a new news report out. Chesapeake Bay Foundation explains Maryland's rain tax. If you live in Maryland, get ready to pay for rain. Lawmakers passed an impervious surfaces tax, also being called the rain tax.
Yes,
basically,
impervious surfaces like cement and roofs.
You will be charged for any surface of land you own that does not absorb rainwater. The ultimate goal is to reduce stormwater runoff and improve the health of the Chesapeake Bay.
But see, you can't collect it, okay?
No.
In other words,
no. It has to absorb. If you collect it, you're stealing.
But see, you can't direct it to, for example, you
can't divert it.
Yeah, so you've got to pay for it.
And even if you don't, you remember the wetlands, the people that were fighting were sued by the federal government for building on wetlands that weren't wetlands?
Yes.
I mean,
Did you? I gotta say this, because did you know in our town, a man was actually sued by the state, and I found this by accident, was sued by the state for diverting a creek. What he did was he moved a mound of dirt, so
90 seconds.
Would not go through his backyard. The state sued him and won. I asked the magistrate about it. I said, "Is this for real?" And the magistrate basically threw me out of his office. Said, "Yes, for real. Can I get out? Quit asking questions." This was like 15 years ago. I want to tell you that.
That's pretty shocking, and not shocking though at the same time, knowing what we are up against. And we are at the end of the show already.
Man, that
ladies
was fast.
and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for hanging there
seconds.
with us. Everybody in chat, everybody. I don't know if we have audio on Blog Talk or not, but we still have over 200 people in the chat room there. I think that's fantastic.
God bless you folks, man. I'm telling you,
Thank
and
you,
we
Troy.
understand listener fatigue. Troy, you are a godsend. Thank you so much for everything you do.
And we'll be back on video tomorrow. That is, if we both get our hair and makeup people back in here to make sure we look all right. But with that, God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow night. Paul McGuire, he's going to be coming on soon. I have to check my email because
we keep saying that he's coming on.
I'm not sure which day it is. I had to.
All right,
figure that out. But thank you guys.
10 seconds.
We will see you tomorrow.
We'll be back here fresh and purdy for you.
Yes, we will.
So, all right. Good night, everyone. God bless, and do something to prepare.
Have a good night.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.